All right, a very lovely and warm good evening to everyone present here. I can already see a lot of cheerful faces here. And before I delve into the topic, as Ramesh sir, I will take some cue from Ramesh sir's speech, wherein he said a lot goes into, decision making. But often certain people are behind the scenes who play a very crucial role. And one of the key members in this decision making are the leadership team members. So we have all the leadership members present here, and we'll deep dive into what goes into, basically into decision making. And hence we have decided on a topic called From Strategy to Execution, Leadership Insights and a Day in the Life of a Manufacturing Visionary. So without wasting any further time, I'll start my first question. So Ramesh sir, I would like to understand, how do you start your day? Is there any morning ritual that you follow or any morning habit that you have to kickstart your day?
I'm a early riser. I have been so. Personally, it gives me a lot of more time. See, ultimately, all of us have the same amount of time. It's about what you do with it. So I wouldn't say it's a ritual. The first thing I do is get up in the morning and make sure that I get 1 hour of me time. Now, what I do with the me time is different on different days, but that kind of sets me going for the whole day.
Right, but before wearing that leadership hat, can you just describe any one thing that you do specifically?
See, personally,
you do yoga or any?
No, I walk. I do a little bit of yoga. I have been doing yoga, but that's not the first thing that I really do. And again, the leadership hat, I don't know, it's not something that you put on and take off. Look, if you don't lead yourself, first you have to be a leader to yourself. I think that's the most important, and that hat never comes off.
Perfectly right. Right, sir. Jayanti would like to add on it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I start my day, I wake up, I first do a small prayer. And then the first thing that I do is I mentally plan what is there for the day today. And then I look at my diary with my cup of tea and, of course, with my pets because they calm me down with their unconditional love. And I sit down. That 20-30 minutes is very, very important for me to just plan the entire day. And then I hit the ground. Right. That's as simple.
Absolutely. As Ramesh sir said, and as you pointed out, that's your me time, and it's very important to prioritize yourself the first thing in the morning. Sudhir sir, we would like to know your perspective as to how do you start your day.
Yeah, good evening to all of you. My day starts, you see, I'm a firm believer in God. So I thank Him for waking me up alive and kicking. That's the first thing. At the same time, I am a cat lover, and I have dozens of cats in my garden. So, in fact, they wake me up. They're hungry, so I have to feed them. So I see it as a kind of empathy towards fellow beings. And then go for a walk, very long walk, 4 or 5 kilometers. Have few friends. So that's the most happy time I look forward, because we gossip, we pull each other, and we are oldies, so we can make fun of each other, and we look forward for a day. Apart from this, being leader, it's a 24-hour job. So really you can't say that I plan day in the morning and I live it. When you're a leader, it's a whole life. 24 hours, 24/7, by 365, you have to keep thinking how to generate revenue, how to develop technology, how to come up with a new product, how to make your company great, and how to make everybody happy. That's very important, because ultimately we do everything for happiness.
Absolutely.
So this is in summary,
the key mantra behind yours.
Yes.
Start to the
Thank
day.
you.
Right, sir. Ramesh sir, I would like to ask you, what does your typical day look like as a manufacturing leader? Is it more about planning, strategizing, managing people? How does your day look like at work?
See, yeah, a typical day. There are typical days. and there are other days. So the typical days would probably be 10 days in a month. Other days are 20 days in a month.
And what would you do on the other days?
So, yeah, I personally believe one of the most important things as a resource from a company or even from a family perspective are people. You know, you really, while yes, we look at things as resources, but people are perhaps, people can do something that's the resource that can give you out 100% or give out 0%. So a lot of time is really spent with people. Of course, there are planning days, there are execution days, which are those 10 days. And they're typical because they follow an agenda, etc., etc. But other than that, the remaining 20 days, we have several businesses. So I kind of, visit each of these businesses. And when I visit those businesses also, maybe you spend 20, 30% of your time in measurements and things like that, what was supposed to have happened, what has happened. But I personally believe that it's the people that really matter, so I kind of look at spending more time with people. And a very important part is, like the leaders, they're also leaders. And everybody has a leadership role in career, has a leadership role in their homes, and also has a leadership role that they play in society. There are many people who are engineers, but are very good gardeners outside. They contribute so many things. So if you get to know the person, then it helps you understand how he thinks or how he feels or what motivates him. And that kind of, I think, is an extremely important aspect from a leadership perspective. So if you were to ask me where I would like to focus, I try to focus as much as possible on people, because if you have the people with you, anything is possible. That's my firm belief.
Right, so absolutely point taken, and empathy is the best thing when it comes to, working with your people and also walking into their shoes and feeling what they feel at the first place. Jayanti ma'am, can we have your perspective?
So, as Ramesh mentioned, there is no such thing called, for me especially, there's no such thing called a typical day. It's always different. Yes, we try to have this typical days, maybe I would say 5 days, because I'm always traveling. And as much as possible, when I am there in person, I do take time and spend time with my team. But when I'm not there, I ensure that I give them a call wherever I am. So otherwise, it's always firefighting, and the rest of the day, I spend, meeting my customers, talking to them, understanding the issues. So this is typically how, my day is, fully filled with something or the other issues. And, we all brainstorm together to address the issues. And I like that part of it. It's not that I know everything and I instruct the team, It's more that it comes from them. And every day I learn from them. Oh, I could have thought of this way, So that's my typical day.
Perfect. Sudhir sir, if you would like to
Yeah,
add.
for me, the normal day used to be 8:30 to onwards. When you don't have a specific objective other than running the shop. The special day used to be, because I'm a missile scientist, so when we used to have the mission, a flight test, the testing of the missile, because that is going to decide the future course of the company organization. So the day of the flight test used to be very special and shaking, very uncertain, sometime confident, sometime, praying to God to make it happen. And that's what it used to be.
But on certain days when things don't go your way, then how do you deal with it?
When the day doesn't go as per the
As
plan.
per your plan.
When it doesn't go as per the plan, you see, I learned very early in my age that it is only you who has to be blamed for spoiling the scene. You should never transfer it to your subordinate or to your colleague. Later I understood that for a leader to prove himself in front of his employees and the board members, he has to take the burden of failure. He has to say that it was my mistake or my bad planning. That's why this has happened. Otherwise, success, of course, you can give it to everyone, whosoever has contributed.
Right, sir. Ramesh sir, I would like to ask you, what was the first big decision that you have made this year? And what encouraged you to take that decision? And what was the outcome? And how has it enhanced your business?
See, this particular year, again, from a business perspective, we are, the AS Designers was a group of companies. We went in for an amalgamation of several divisions. We had a philosophy all these years, 40 years, of, we visioned ourselves as being small is beautiful and focus. And we've been very successful with that, where, we have a division that's manufacturing turning machines, not a division, a company that's manufacturing turning machines, a company that's manufacturing machining centers, a company that's in grinding, a company that's in marketing, because we genuinely, the founders and all of us believed that small is beautiful and you could grow fast if you have a focused small team. That's how we started, and we got to this position where we are the largest machine tool group in India, which again, we've been manufacturing in India for 45 years now. We are in our 45th year, 2930 is going to be our 30th. So collectively, this did not happen this year, but we came together as an amalgamated company, something that we, were not doing.
Right.
So, two things. The globe is changing. While we are a big known name in machine tools and the largest manufacturer in India, today everything is about globalization. And if I really need to go out to the globe, then size matters. We need to leverage strength. We need to have deeper pockets. We need to have a basket of products to look at costs and a lot of such things. So we have embarked on this journey. And again, we believe not just us, manufacturing is coming of age. India will play a big role in manufacturing from a global perspective. Now the question is not about will it happen? It will happen. The question is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? And to what scale we're going to go? We see the signs, and it's not just us. You look at the manufacturing sector anywhere. Again, hats off to BrahMos and what we've seen happening in the recent past, the kind of work that defense is doing, the kind of work any other precision manufacturing is doing. Look at what has happened on a large scale in the automotive industry, in the supply chain to the automotive industry. So I personally am very, very, very buoyant and boyish about manufacturing. So I think this decision of looking at things from a global perspective, we were in exports always, but it would be 8%, 10%, 85%, India at 15%. But at least looking at, if not 50-50, 75-25 is the kind of plans that we should really have. And this is from hardcore mechanical engineering market, manufacturing, where there's a material cost, not software or, again, please don't mistake me, I'm not trying to belittle.
So you can hold the mic a little closer to you.
Yes.
Probably, please
Yeah,
hold.
so I think that was a very significant decision
Right.
that we've made.
Right. So these are, I'll come back to you, since sir was mentioning a lot of things like supply chain disruption, the global war that has been, the uncertainties that we can see due to the wars that is happening across the globe. How have you managed? You've always managed high stakes and high security programs. So how do you stay calm and decisive in such uncertainties? So these are my questions to you. Yes.
As I understand, your question is, how do I maintain
calm
my
and
calmness in the supply chain disruption?
Disruption, global wars,
Yes.
there's a lot that is happening.
When it comes to disruption, let me just tell you that I started my career from Defense Research and Development Laboratory, Hyderabad. And Dr. Abdul Kalam used to be our captain. So from the day one, we were under sanction. And our supply chain was continuously disrupted. So we can say that we never had any supply chain. we had to do everything in India on our own, or we depended on the traders to get something from outside in their own way. And that really has created confidence in us that we have to do everything on our own. We have to develop the vendors. And developing a vendor is not just by giving them, build to design specification and expect them to give it back. But we used to do the hand holding right from explaining them the requirement of that particular component or subsystem, to positioning the engineers with them and ensuring that they deliver and match our specifications. So that's how we have overcome the disruption in the supply chain. Apart from this, we also found another way that if we have to overcome this, we should start something in which the vendors don't need to invest too much of their capital. So a government came out with a concept called GoCo, government-owned company operated, and we followed it in the BrahMos also. So we gave them the machinery and machinery to the established vendors so that the capex need is eliminated. And then told that you please use it, you are responsible for maintenance, and we would be, this way we were thinking that we would get the component the right price. And over a period of time, when it is completely depreciated, we used to gift it back to them. So that was also another attraction for them, that after maybe 7 years, 8 years, they would retain it. So they used to continuously supply us the subsystems. And I have learned another thing from Dr. Abdul Kalam, that if you are challenged, if something is denied to you, then you always rise and try to prove to the rest of the world that we also can do it ourselves. That's what has happened. And maybe because I'm working, I used to work for the government, still I'm working, so the thought process may take me on this line of action. Maybe the other sector, other manufacturing sector, they may have their own strategy to overcome this. But challenge is the best thing which can take out the best out of a human being.
Any challenge that you can specifically highlight? Was it budget constraint or something that you would like to highlight?
You see, budget was never a problem. It's the advantage of working with the government. They always assure you that this much fund is available. They look for the output. They look for a product out of it. So this I will not say. The main challenge was the technology development. You don't have the people who can supply you the devices or subsystem. Another main problem what I faced was that in defense technology, whatever you do it for the first time. So there are no quality assurance standards available, because whatever is published by the Western world in the journals, it's all false. It's misleading. They try to ensure that you don't reach to the destination. So the data available in the journal is all false. Now you have to create your own data. So data for the quality assurance and testing. So this was the most challenging part because you have to match up to certain specifications. So the creation of these things was very difficult. I will tell you that only about 20%, 30% used to be the design cost, another 15-20% manufacturing cost, and 60% is the testing cost, ensuring that you get a product of required quality and assurance. So this used to be the challenge.
Right, sir. So coming to the challenges, Jayanti, I would like to ask you, what are the unique challenges you faced as a women CEO in a largely male-dominated manufacturing and aerospace sector? And how did you overcome? You are today a representation for all the women members sitting out here. So it could be a word of encouragement to them.
Absolutely. I think I should take inspiration from Tessie ma'am also. I did meet her a couple of times and I did hear about her. See, as a young person, you know, hearing about her achievements, you know, all these only inspires us, right? But yes, challenges, yes, I did have. But I used, you know, this challenge as an opportunity to lead and put out my perspective. That really helped me. I let my work speak, more than the bias. So that really helped. And I don't feel any bias, And today, if you see my organization, the sales and operations is led by another fantastic woman. So, she is inspired by me. I'm inspired by somebody else. So it goes on. So that's the challenge I've had, honestly.
Right. Ramesh, so my question would be you, that's an interesting one. What do you do when your yearly budgets are not met and business targets are not met, and how do you communicate that with your team and the board members?
Tough question. But then that happens more often in business or in anything else. See, three things. Point number one, you must have targets. If you don't have targets, then they kind of, are the North Star. So that's given. Now these targets need to be holistic. Of course, they need to be stretched, but they need to be holistic. This is the second part. And whether I, as a boss, to my team, or my board, as a mentor to me, or the industry, are all a part and parcel of this business of setting targets and trying to meet targets. So targets are set and achievements are an outcome. So when you set those targets, I think it's very, very important to understand what is the process that you need to do to go towards those targets. Okay? And are you meeting process, whether it's timelines or process targets? That will ensure that you meet the ultimate target. So coming back to your question, when you don't meet targets, so the question is, which targets? So there are lead indicators, there are lag indicators. And what happens at the end of the quarter, end of the half year, and end of the full year are the lag indicators of not having achieved the result. So if you are targeting on processes, then you understand a little earlier what's not happening in the process. And this could be because of the process itself not being right, in which case you need to amend the process. Or this could be because of a situation that's not making the process happen, or you don't have the capability or the capacity. So that breaks down the not meeting target into its constituent problems. And then you work on the problem. And a very, very important aspect about targets and achievements is it's a continuous process of which it needs to be done. Now if you say, okay, I'm going to meet these targets, and then after 4 months and say, I have not met those targets, then I don't believe you have set them in the right place. You've backward integrated with processes. And in doing this, you have to take the team into confidence. The team must know that you believe in them and you're working with them. And the board must know that, because every constituent of a company or a business has a specific role to play, and our roles is to enable. So while we work with teams, it's not just we teach the teams, the bosses also learn from the teams what's happening. So if this does not happen, then you realize you have not met the target at a point which is too late, and that's where all this blame game, etc., and the difficulties start. If that's not there, and if it's done properly, then you either amend the target or you know what is likely to happen. So that's perhaps a different way of looking at targets and achievements.
That's a very great perspective. Jayanti, would you like to add on that?
Well, you'll have to repeat your question again.
So I asked that when your targets are not met, when your business targets are not met, how do you come back to your team and you communicate to your board members? What do you do?
So first thing is, I take out the blame lens and I put the analytical lens. Find the root cause, what's going wrong. And see, in my organization, we are very transparent. We start with, okay, so this is the target that was set. This is where we landed. This not happen. And what is the, issue? And I make the team, co-own the problems so that they also come out with their perspective as to what went wrong. So, my organization is quite different from the traditional organization. If you all just come over, you'll actually see me sitting and working with them. We don't have this boss, subordinate, we just don't have it, You'll be actually surprised and somebody walks in and is like, who is the owner, That's how we all sit together and we work. So that way, I set realistic targets and most of the time we achieve it with about 10 to 15% kind of a setback. But we've been doing good and I hope the culture remains the same.
Right. So I'll do a quick rapid fire round, just one-liners for each questions that I'll be asking. So each one of you can do that. Just 5 questions I'll take and we'll end this up here. So one thing your team doesn't know you are really good at. Sudhir sir, if you would like to talk.
What is it?
One thing that your team doesn't know that you are really good at.
Team knows everything almost what I'm good at, but they know very well that I'm very good at networking.
Right.
So any problem, anything can be resolved.
That's right. Jayanti,
Yeah.
you would like to add?
I think they don't know. What I do is, over the weekend, I'm like a totally different person. They cannot even recognize me. I'll be with my Harley, in my helmet and jacket, so they don't even know who this person is, and that's my secret escape.
A lot of secrets are coming out today, so we'd like to know from you as well.
Again, I kind of very similar. My team perhaps don't know that I can switch off and switch on the minute things change.
Unpredictable.
Right. So, as you said, so what is tough to handle? Difficult clients or unpredictable markets?
It's an unpredictability market.
Markets.
Yeah.
Jayanti, what would you say? Clients or markets?
I think clients are reasonable. I can reason with them. Markets, I cannot. So I would say unpredictable markets.
So, what's your take?
See, difficult clients are opportunities. It's not just market. Unpredictability is the biggest problem we face in everything. So I would go with it.
So, one cost-cutting idea that worked without hurting morale.
Pardon?
One cost-cutting idea.
One
Cost-cutting idea.
cost cutting. You see, it's a very difficult question. Cost cutting, because whenever you think of cost cutting, everybody says that he's already spending the minimum amount of money. And I will say that when I requested everyone during the COVID time, let's not go by the business class, travel by the economy, all of us, including me. That was the most painful thing for the top management.
Jayanti, one cost-cutting idea that worked for you.
So the way our organization, as I said, it's quite different from the traditional way. We spend what our means are, right? We don't go beyond that. And that is being educated to all the people that work for us. We don't go beyond what we have set. And at the same time, we limit it to what our means are. Also, in terms of, for example, I can give you, it's salary, for example. I keep them a fixed and a variable. You do get it, but then, when the company achieves. So they are in sync with that. Right. So that has helped me without hurting the morale.
Ramesh sir, one cost-cutting idea that worked for you without hurting morale.
It's work that's happening. I don't know if it's going to work or not. We're in manufacturing, so it's a 48-hour week, 6 into 8 kind of.
Right.
So we're working on a possibility of manufacturing where we cut Saturdays. Everybody's been asking for Saturday off, so we've taken it as a cost-cutting measure. It's work in progress, and I believe we'll make it work by extending hours on the other days and not coming to work on Saturdays.
So if not a manufacturer, last question, you would be?
If I was not a manufacturer, I would be a wildlife enthusiast.
Oh, Jayanti, your team.
I can't think of anything because from childhood, I'm always doing something different, It might be my father's cycle, which I would have totally opened up. and the wheels would be separate. So, from day one, it's that. So I can't even think of something else.
Sudhi, sir.
I would have been singer.
Oh, nice. One song if you can sing. No, you can sing one song.
You must have observed my throat. It's
No, I
different.
Think, I think a line could be.
No, I'm not. I'm
Just
manufacturing
one line,
engineer.
just one line.
No.
Just one line.
डरे डरे ये जाम भरे भरे जरा पीने दो कल की किसको
It was so melodious. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for that listening, for the patient listening, and thank you so much, gentlemen and Jayanti, both of you, all three of you, for joining us tonight. And we're looking forward to the evening ahead. And thank you so much for joining us.